When I saw her name appear on my phone screen after 7 years of silence, I felt something strange tighten in my chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't love either. It was something in between. The kind of feeling you get when you stand in front of a house that burned down years ago and realize you can still smell the smoke in the walls. I stared at the screen for several long seconds. Hey, I know I'm probably the last person you expected to hear from, but can we talk? I read the message over and over again. After all these years, why now? I locked my phone without replying. But the message stayed in my mind for the rest of the night. I had moved on, or at least, I thought I had. My life was peaceful. I had a decent job, good friends, more time with my family, and most importantly, I had finally found the peace of mind that I never had during our relationship. But the past has a bad habit. It never truly dies. The next morning, a mutual friend sent me a message. She's going through a really difficult time right now. Just hear her out. Once I sighed. Then I agreed. What I didn't know was that this decision would eventually lead us to one of the cruelest moments of my life. I met her when we were both in high school. She was beautiful in a way that immediately caught people's attention. I, on the other hand, was just an ordinary guy. Shy, insecure, always convinced that someone better than me could take her away at any moment. OTT. First, our relationship was great. We would spend hours talking, laughing at jokes that nobody else understood, planning a future that seemed guaranteed. But as time passed, my flaws began to show. I was jealous, far more jealous than I should have been. Any guy who talked to her bothered me. Any picture she posted made me wonder who she wanted to impress. Any delay in her replies could ruin my entire day. Today, I can admit that I wasn't easy to be with. In fact, I was often the reason behind many of our arguments. But even then, I never expected what happened next. One day, she excitedly told me that she had started working with a well-known photographer in our city. She dreamed of becoming a model. For her, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. For me, it felt like a nightmare. I tried to hide how uncomfortable I was, but I failed. The arguments started, one after another. She said I didn't trust her. I said I didn't trust him. Eventually, she continued working with him, despite my objections. Several months passed. Then the first thing happened that made my stomach drop. One night, she was asleep beside me, while her phone lit up on the table. A notification appeared. I wasn't planning to look, but I did. And that was the beginning of the end. Opened the conversation. There were messages between her and the photographer. Strange messages. Nicknames like baby and sweetheart. And she was calling him Daddy. It felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. The next day, I confronted her. She denied everything. She said it was just a joke between friends. She said I was overreacting. She said I was interpreting things the wrong way. And somehow, I believed her. Or maybe I was simply lying to myself, because the truth was too painful to accept. A few months later, I discovered something worse. Long conversations filled with declarations of love, messages about missing each other, heart emojis everywhere, plans to meet alone. At that moment, I felt like the entire world was laughing at me. Yet I still didn't leave. I was desperately holding on to what remained of the relationship. looking for excuses to stay, searching for any lie. Could believe any small piece of hope. Then came the final blow. We were out on a normal date. Suddenly, she asked to go through my phone. I smiled and handed it to her immediately. Then I said, "Sure. But afterward, I get to look through yours." The expression on her face changed instantly. She tried to back out. That's when I knew she was hiding something. I took her phone. Started searching. And then I found the conversation that destroyed everything. She was arguing with the photographer's girlfriend, insulting her, jealous of her, demanding to know why she had been alone with him at his house in that moment. I didn't need any more proof. I locked the phone, looked at her, and calmly said, "It's over." For the first time in years, I didn't try to fix things. I walked away and left her behind. Just a few weeks later, pictures of the two of them appeared all over social media, officially together, as if she had simply been waiting for our relationship to end. That night, I didn't cry, but something inside me died. Years passed, many long years. And with each passing year, I learned something new. I focused on my career, started working out, traveled, met new people, and discovered that life doesn't end when one person leaves. As for her, she completely disappeared from my life. Until one day, 7 years later, her message appeared out of nowhere. The message that changed everything all over again. I didn't reply to her message for 3 days. 3 days of staring at my phone. 3 days of wondering what she wanted. 3 days of reminding myself that whatever happened in the past no longer mattered. Eventually, curiosity won. I sent a simple reply, "Sure," when her response came almost instantly. As soon as possible, something about that bothered me. People who are truly over the past don't answer that fast. A few days later, we met at a small coffee shop on the other side of town. The moment I walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked different. Older, more mature. The bright confidence she once carried seemed faded. As if life had slowly chipped away at it over the years, she stood up when she saw me. For a second, neither of us spoke. We just stared at each other, trying to compare who we remembered with who stood in front of us now. "Hi," she finally said. Awkward. Painfully awkward. The kind of awkward that only exists between two people who once knew everything about each other. We sat down. The conversation started slowly. Work, family, life, safe. Topics. Neither of us wanted to touch the real reason we were there. Eventually, she broke the silence. "I'm sorry." I looked up. "For what?" "For everything." I wasn't expecting that. Not after all these years. Not after all the lies. Not after the way everything ended. She lowered her eyes. I wasn't a good person back then. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, I wasn't exactly innocent either. I had been controlling, jealous, immature. We had both hurt each other in different ways. Still, there are mistakes. And then there is betrayal. The conversation continued 4 hours. And before we left, she asked something unexpected. "Would you want to do this again sometime?" Hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no. Another part of me wanted closure. Maybe that was all it was. Closure. So I agreed. One meeting became 2 dot. 2 became 5. Then 10. Before long, talking to her felt natural again. Dangerously natural, like putting on an old jacket you haven't worn in years. At first, we only met for coffee, then dinners, then long drives around the city. Eventually, we started talking about things we had never discussed before. The breakup, the photographer, the years in between. One night, she finally told me what happened after our relationship ended. At first, everything had been perfect. Or at least, that's what she thought. The photographer was charming, confident, successful. Everything she believed she wanted. But over time, the relationship became toxic. Arguments, manipulation, jealousy, constant fighting. The same things she once accused me of doing. Only worse. Much worse. He wasn't who I thought he was, she admitted. I almost laughed, because those exact words had once been true about her. But I kept quiet as the weeks passed. I began noticing something. Every time we met, she looked happier, more relaxed, like she was rebuilding something she had lost. And honestly, I enjoyed her company too. Not because I was in love, at least I didn't think I was, but because the anger was gone. For years, I had imagined what I would say. If I ever saw her again, how I'd confront her, how I'd make her understand how much she hurt me. Yet now that she sat across from me, none of that seemed important anymore. The past felt distant, like something that had happened to somebody else. Then one night, everything changed. We were sitting in my car after dinner. The rain was hitting the windshield. Neither of us seemed eager to leave. She looked at me, really looked at me, and quietly asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't ruined everything?" The question caught me off guard. I looked away. I don't know. I do. I turned back toward her. She smiled sadly. I think about it all the time. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us felt heavier than any conversation. Then she reached for my hand. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I didn't pull away. That was the moment things became complicated. Because somewhere between old memories and second chances, the lines started to blur. And neither of us noticed how dangerous that would become. Not yet, because the biggest mistake of my life wasn't dating her the first time. It was believing the second time would be different. After that night in the car, things moved faster than either of us expected. We started seeing each other almost every day. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long nights, talking about everything and nothing. And eventually, one thing led to another. Soon, we were spending entire weekends together. For a while, it almost felt like we were back in high school. Only this time, without the constant fighting, without the jealousy, without all the chaos that had once consumed our relationship. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. The truth was more complicated. Because while she seemed to be falling for me again, wasn't. Not completely. I cared about her. I genuinely enjoyed her company. I wanted her to be happy, but every time I imagined making things official again, something inside me resisted. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. I just knew. I didn't see a future with her. Maybe it was because much had happened. Maybe it was because we had both changed. Or maybe because, deep down, some wounds never fully heal. Still, I kept seeing her. And that was my mistake. Because every day that passed seemed to make her feelings stronger. One evening, she looked at me and smiled. I haven't been this happy in years. I smiled back, but my stomach tightened. Because I wasn't sure I could say the same. A few days later, she asked the question for the first time. So, what are we? I froze. I wasn't prepared. Not for that conversation. Not yet. So I gave the safest answer I could think of. I just got out of a relationship not that long ago. I think I need more time. It was a lie. That I had been single for quite a while. But telling the truth felt harder. She nodded, seemed to understand. And for a moment, I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't, because she asked again. The next week, then again. A few days later, then again. After that, every conversation eventually found its way back to the same question. When will you be ready? At first, I tried to be patient. Then I became uncomfortable. Eventually, I became frustrated. Not because she was doing anything wrong, but because I knew the answer. And I wasn't brave enough to say it. The answer was simple. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't healing. I wasn't thinking about it. I just didn't want a relationship with her. But every time I looked at her hopeful face, I couldn't bring myself to say it. Weeks passed. Then, one night, everything finally exploded. We had just finished dinner. The drive home was quiet. Too quiet. Then she asked it again. The same question. The one I had heard dozens of times. So, are you ready now? I gripped the steering wheel tighter than I realized. No? She sighed. Then when I didn't answer, she looked out the window, then quietly said, I just don't understand why you're keeping me waiting. Something inside me snapped. Years of memories, years of pain, years of guilt, years of resentment. Everything collided at once. And before I could stop myself, I said the cruelest thing I have ever said to another human being. You really want to know why? She turned toward me. Confused, I laughed. A cold laugh. One that didn't even sound like me, because none of this was real. The color drained from her face. What? I never wanted to get back together. She stared at me, speechless. I continued. Every word worse than the last. I just wanted you to know what it felt like. What are you talking about? I looked directly into her eyes. All those years ago, you cheated on me. Tears immediately began forming. But I didn't stop. I waited years for this opportunity. Her voice trembled. No. I wanted you to trust me. No. I wanted you to believe there was a future. Her eyes filled with tears. No! And then I wanted to destroy it. The silence that followed felt endless. She was crying now, barely able to speak. And for the first time that entire night, I realized what I had done. Because the look on her face wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was heartbreak. Pure heartbreak. The kind you don't fake. The kind you don't forget. Dropped her off at our mutual friend's house. Neither of us spoke. She stepped out of the car, closed the door, and walked away. Never saw her again. Years have passed since that night. A lot of years. She blocked me on everything. Social, media, phone, every possible way of contacting her. And honestly, I don't blame her. Because here's the truth. The thing I've never admitted to anyone wasn't getting revenge. Not really. I had already moved on years before. I had already forgiven her. At least enough to stop carrying the anger. The truth is far less dramatic, far less satisfying, and far more pathetic. I was simply a coward. A coward who wasn't brave enough to tell someone the truth. A coward who chose the cruelest possible exit instead of an honest one. Would things have ended anyway? Probably. Would she still have been hurt? Almost certainly. But maybe, just maybe, Dachi wouldn't have carried that final memory of me. The memory of a man smiling while breaking her heart. And that's the part that still bothers me. Not what she did to me, but what I chose to do to her. Because sometimes the worst mistakes aren't the ones made in anger. They're the ones made when we know better and choose the wrong path anyway. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications for more dramatic stories of love, betrayal, heartbreak, and life-changing decisions. Your support helps bring more unforgettable stories to the channel.